Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my complete Abyss guide. Now, you guys have been wanting this video forever now, so I'm finally doing it, and I've been delaying it because it's a lot of research, and I really wanted to be sure that everything I say was not only accurate, but also that I didn't, forget much, or that I could try to cover as much as I could without making the video insanely long. However, this will be a longer video than usual, but as I said, I do want to cover everything and be sure that it's detailed so you guys can come back to it and use the timestamps or whatever to help you. A few things I want you guys to know though before we get into it. First of all, this video is going to be in a few sections. We're going to start with some general information that you need to know regarding specific enemies, artifacts, party comps, who you need to level, stuff like that. We'll try to do that briefly. And then after that, we're going to mainly talk about floors 9 to 12. We're going to go through each floor in detail, and I'll try to be free to play friendly. And we'll talk about basically if you don't have Venti or if you do have Venti because of how good he is, and specific team comps. And stuff you can do to 9-star every floor, or to at least get as many stars as you can with your comps, artifacts, and all that. Lastly, and most importantly, I want to say that I could not do all of this by myself. I did do a lot of research and a lot of testing and theory crafting, but I did use the help of a few people. First of all, my math guy Alexi, who you know by now. If you don't, check out his YouTube, Twitch. He's super big brain and helped me a lot with this video. And also Syleza, who's like a guide in the Keqing main Discord. And they made an entire Abyss guide in like a document. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to be covering in this video. Notably some ideas for Abyss 11 and 12. But definitely check out the guide, and yeah, they were a huge help, so big shout out to them. I don't want to take their credit. So yeah, text guide in the description if you need it. Last but not least, I do stream almost every night on Twitch. Follow me if you want, because I do enjoy it. I really hope this video isn't too long, but you guys can use the timestamps if you need to. Hope it's detailed enough, and hope you enjoy. We're going to start this video off by talking about some general info that pretty much everyone needs to know to clear Abyss effectively. So first of all, I want to say we're going to talk about some specific enemies for the specific floors. Like, we will talk about how to destroy the shields and how to basically save time in specific floors against specific enemies. But a general enemy that is common to many floors are the Fatuis, and these I'm going to talk about now. On screen I've included a sort of image that shows the counter to every Fatui shield, and there's a lot of Fatuis in Abyss, so this is a tip that should help you guys for every floor if you don't know it. And this isn't my image, it's from a Reddit post, which I'm going to link in the description. But yeah, basically all the shields are very easy to clear except the Hydra one, because for some reason clearing the Hydra shield takes forever. So usually I try to just out DPS it. I would DPS the guy before he gets the shield. If not, you should use Electro. The first thing I want to do is basically break the misconception that you need 8 leveled characters for Abyss, especially past floor 5 when you need 2 teams, or even that you need a lot of leveled characters. So obviously it's important to have a well-geared DPS and like high-level DPS so you can level their talents, give them good artifacts, all that. But apart from your DPS characters, the other characters usually don't need that much investment. Now, some supports do, like characters like Zhongli, who's a support, characters like Jean do like to be high-leveled, to have investment, to be efficient. But a lot of your supports, you can get value off them just by being usually like level 60 out of 70 ascended, and you don't need to level them past that. For example, my Xingqiu, who I use a lot now, especially with Diluc, is very efficient even at level 60 out of 70. Also, for a lot of floors, you can bring low-level characters just for their elemental abilities to break certain shields like the Fatui shields, or to apply, certain elements. One of the most important general tips I want to talk about that you guys need to know is utilizing your ultimates efficiently, especially for iframes. Now, this is something that a lot of people neglect. Basically, your elemental burst obviously is usually a really good ability, either does a lot of damage or is a very nice support ability like Bennett's Q. And while you do want to be using it quite often, a lot of the times it can be better to wait for a moment where you can use it to dodge something to benefit from the invulnerability of your burst. So if you guys don't know, throughout the entire burst period, or most of it, at least, depending on each character, you are invulnerable. So you can use it to dodge attacks, especially attacks that you can't like avoid if you're out of stamina or if you're getting hit or whatever. You can literally swap to a character, use the burst, and just dodge the hit, right? He dashed through me and I didn't take damage. I do want to talk to you guys about iframes, invulnerability frames, which is basically stuff you can do to be invulnerable for a bit, not take damage. So one of the ways to do this is with your elemental burst, as I talked about, but you can also do it with your dash, because the start of your sprint, of your dash, does give you those iframes. So I'm going to wait for him to do a predictable attack here. So as you guys can see, whenever I'm about to get hit, I can just dash through it or dash away or something. Use those iframes, even dashing into it. See, I didn't take any damage as long as you time the iframes correctly. Also, I want you guys to know that yes, I'm privileged with having Venti, but what I'm going to be doing is for this guide, for every floor, I'm going to be talking about without Venti. But I'll also talk about how you do it with Venti in case you do have them and need some help, because obviously not everyone that has Venti has 9-star everything. So I will be covering both, but I'll try to, be free to play friendly and talk about other alternatives and characters that you can use, and basically how to abuse the AI, especially in like 11.2 and stuff. So don't worry, you do not need Venti to clear the Abyss. You just need good team comps, artifacts, and understanding how the game works. Okay, just a few really quick tips that I want you guys to know and make sure you guys know before we get into the video. So one of the things is that, first of all, these 3 cards that you see here do change every single day. So, and I know this is floor 1, but just as an example, if you do have bad ones in a day, it's not going to be like that every single day. So some days you might be luckier than others and you might want to capitalize on that. But something else you guys should know is, you guys see I'm at chamber 2 right now, right? So if I were to abandon challenge, it would just kick me out and I have to restart at chamber 1. But if you guys don't know, if you do click leave for now, when you whenever you want, even in like a few hours, if you do come back to Abyss, you can restart from where the chamber you're at. So if you're at chamber 2, chamber 3, whatever it is, you start back from there and you don't have to restart the whole Abyss floor. Now this can be especially useful, especially in like Abyss 11-2. Let's say the monolith takes too much damage, you can just reset and you don't have to redo 11-1. Another important thing, which I personally used for floor 11, is that you can use specific comps to 3-star specific chambers. Let's say you can't pass a DPS check on chamber 3 of floor 11. What you can do is you can run 2 different team comps. You can go in, get 3 stars on 11-2 with team comp A, then abandon run, and then change your team comps, get a better one for 11-3, and even though your 11-2 might have no stars or 1 star or whatever, you can still get 3 stars on 11-3 and it'll keep your best run for each of them, and then you'll have your 9 stars, even if you do use 2 or 3 different team comps, even if for each chamber you have to use a specific team. Something we're going to do is basically we're going to talk about which team you should put your grouper on, sucrose or whatever, for each floor, just because it's something that I saw in the written guide, which I've linked in the description, and it's a good idea because if you do have Venti, you do want to be using him like always, so I'll tell you guys which floor to use him, and if you don't, well, you still might want to run someone like Sucrose or a Nemo MC, especially for floor 11, and we'll go over that later. Alright, now we're going to talk about Abyss floors 9 to 12. We're going to go through each floor in detail, especially 11 and 12, because those are the 2 that people have the most difficulty on, but we're going to start with floor 9, and we're going to do each of them in order. So for floor 9, the Leyline Disorder isn't too hard. There's basically just braziers that will remove the sheer cold from you, because there's that sheer cold effect that's going to be constantly just applying sheer cold to you. So, you know, you just want to sometimes have to go next to the braziers and warm up. But in my personal experience, this Leyline Disorder isn't really a big deal. You can just go next to it for a bit once you do need to warm up. Now for floor 9, you need a pyro on each half, but you also need a cryo on the second half because of the electro hammer Fatui, which means, you know, his shield will be electro, so you need a cryo to break it. So pyro both halves and cryo on the second half. So basically what this would look like is, let's say your DPSs are Razor and Keqing, so not pyro. You would need a pyro support on each half. And then you'd also need a cryo on the second half, and then the rest is just fillers. So if you do have Venti, put them on team 1. Sucrose can work as well, and then from there you want to make sure you have a healer on both teams. We have Bennett on second half. You can put whatever healer you want on the first half, and then just a fill support. Do keep in mind that there are a lot of cryo shields, a lot of cryo enemies, so having multiple pyro supports can be nice. So for floor 9, it is usually pretty straightforward, especially if you have a well-built carry or a lot of pyro units, but I'm going to go in detail in case you don't, or in case you need help with the floor. The first thing you want to do, as you start the first half, you'll notice there are 2 groups of enemies, one in the front in like the north, and another on the left brazier. Now I recommend running towards those on the brazier, because those ones are actually already grouped up, and then the others will run to you, grouping all 6 up. And this is actually a general rule of thumb for Abyss. If you can clump up a bunch of enemies, you want to do so, because it lets you save a bunch of time by, you know, killing them all at once, instead of having to kill some, then run over and kill the others. So if some are targeted on you and others on the brazier, if you go to the brazier ones, the ones targeted on you obviously will follow you, making it easier to just kill them all with some AoE abilities or hits or whatever. For the cryo slimes that spawn, obviously slimes are like pretty straightforward. I don't need to tell you how to kill a slime, but do keep in mind that when you do remove their shield, it does regen after a bit. So if there are many, and if you like remove one, try to kill it before it regens its shield. So be sure to focus the slimes if you have removed their cryo shield, which you should be doing with pyro. The second half is also pretty straightforward. I would recommend focusing the Abyss Mage, just bursting his shield down with your pyro abilities. If you don't have enough pyro abilities, you can just like use them on the shield, then while they're on cooldown, kill the little mobs, then go back to the cryo mage and finish them off, which I actually did in this clip. Now, something important to note is the ice aura on the second cryo mage. Now, this is something that comes back for multiple enemies, this aura, so always be wary of it. As you can see, I get trapped here and I mess up. But something you should know is that every 12 seconds, and you can look at the timer if you want, that aura will appear. And what you can do is you can use iframes. Like here, I use my ultimate. So I go invulnerable as the prison is appearing. So I don't take any damage and I actually dodge it. I'm invulnerable while it happens. So you can dash through it, run away from it or whatever. But one of the things that I try to do especially is when I know it's coming, I will press my Q, my elemental burst, to dodge the prison. Because it does do a lot of damage and it traps you. Apart from that, this floor is pretty straightforward. For all the cryo shields, obviously just spam pyro. And for the rest, you can just brute force it with the DPS. For the second half, very straightforward as well. And as I mentioned in the first half, targeting the guys that are on the brazier is usually what you should do, because then mobs will naturally group up. And AoE effects are really nice here, especially if you have pyro support like Xiangling, who can break the cryo slime's shields and letting you like kill everything at once. The second half is a bit more complicated. There are a bunch of Fatuis, and the cryo one does have an ice aura, which again will make that prison every 12 seconds, so you can look at the timer or just sort of keep track in your head. As you can see in this clip, I do mess up. It's not that big of a deal. If you do mess up though, don't panic. You can still use iframes to dodge attacks, use ultimates, dash, whatever, and you'll be fine. Now, personally, I like focusing the enemy with annoying auras, so I would focus the cryo gunner that does have a prison. But yeah, definitely focusing whatever's the most annoying first is ideal. So for me, that's the cryo gunner because he does have that aura that summons the prison. And if you are concerned about the Anemo Boxer, you can use an ultimate to dodge his punch, as I do in this clip right here. So that you can dash, but you could also just use an ultimate to dodge it. Third chamber, pretty straightforward. Just don't be too afraid of the LAWACHURL because his attacks are pretty predictable. You do have time to dodge. You can either brute force him or kill the archers first. I would recommend for most people to kill the archers first, although I do tend to just brute force them. So pretty straightforward, not much to say here. Just a LAWACHURL. Who you've seen before, his attacks sometimes can be annoying and like fast, but usually they are predictable, or at least predictable enough to where you can use your burst if you have it to dodge it or dash away. For the second half, there's also an ice aura on the Abyss Mage, so I tend to focus him as fast as I can, and once again, every 12 seconds you will be prisoned, so same tips as before do apply. Now, I would recommend using a lot of pyro abilities if you have them, like Xiangling's ult, something that can hit the Milichurl's shields and the Cryo Abyss Mage shield at the same time, so you can get them all down and then just do AoE damage to all of them, or just focus the Abyss Mage if you have to. But obviously, if they're all together, you can clear the floor much faster. For floor 10, you also need a lot of pyro. You need at least one pyro per floor again because, well, that's the only element you need really. And do keep in mind that the Fatui pyro agents always have a lot of pyro resistance. So for me personally, who does like to use Diluc, I would either put him on the other half or bring someone else that can deal with the pyro agent because of his high pyro resistance. Also, it seems like LAWACHURLs have very high physical resistance, according to the wiki at least, so if you're running a physical DPS like Razor, I would recommend putting him on the first half. And if you do have a grouper, someone like Venti or Sucrose, it is very, very recommended to have that person on team 1 to clump up a bunch of enemies. So once again, an example team could be something like, say your DPS are Keqing and Ningguang. You could have a pyro support on each team. You would put your clumper, let's say Sucrose, on the first half, and your second half with this. If you have another pyro support, like, you know, you just want to break shields more, you can run another one, and that would be great. And then from here, you'd want obviously a healer on each team. You have Bennett on the second half. You can put like Chi-Chi here, and yeah, whatever other support you'd want, and that should work fine. Now keep in mind, I will be giving more comp ideas and specific characters to use in 11, but for 9 and 10, as long as you have the specific elements, that's about all you need to get through them efficiently. You just need, you know, as I said, pyro and a well enough built DPS, you know, good enough artifacts on them, and you should be fine. For Abyss Floor 10, apart from team comps, something you need to know is how the Leyline Disorder works. Now, for my personal experience, 9 and 10, Leyline Disorders weren't the most annoying because it was just a sheer cold mechanic. So it's the same thing as when you explore Dragonspine, but for floor 10, there's actually a warming Sealy that just like roams around the field, right? He circles around the floor, the field, whatever. And so it's a good idea to kind of know where he is or keep an eye on him, especially when your sheer cold meter is getting around the halfway point, getting close to full. You can maybe hit enemies that are close to him or start like dashing towards them just for a little bit to warm up and then go back to fighting if you need to. So floor 10 is kind of similar to floor 9, but I will be sure to include as much information as I can because there are timestamps in this video. So I feel like people that are watching this section obviously want to know about floor 10. So I'm not going to just be like, oh, just brute force it. So one thing you'll notice at the start is that there are a lot of hilichurls that throw slimes and a lot of just big slimes that will target on you. Now, everything is focused on you, but the archers, the dudes that throw the slimes, don't really move much. So if you do want to clear this as fast as possible, you should tend to focus them because the slimes will naturally run towards you. So you can like make them all group up on one of the archers and then break all of the slime shields with pyro abilities like Shangling or Bennett or whoever you're using. Apart from that though, basically just break the pyro shields and don't let them regen. For this half, there's not much crazy though. It's just a bunch of slimes and then an abyss mage, and you just gotta, you know, out DPS the timer basically. For the second half, once again, pretty much just speedrun the primary enemy. So here, just go for the Sison Mage. Also, I don't know my game lag there, but yeah, so just kill the Sison Mage as fast as you can. Now, I am, in this clip, I'm destroying her, but keep in mind, I'm only using 1 5-star and 2 4-stars. But even if you do less damage, as you can see, I clear this in like, let's say with 7 minutes left. You do only have to do this within 5 minutes, 300 seconds left to get all stars, so you don't need insane, it's not like a huge DPS check. For the second part, when there's a cryo mage and the 2 little shamans, I would recommend focusing the shamans first because they can heal, and they do make that like rain that heals, so I would recommend killing the shamans and then killing the abyss mage. For the second half, same concept. Since everything's on you, I recommend going for the archers because the melee hilichurls will run at you, making everything clump up and letting you do AoE damage with like bursts or, you know, whatever you have. Apart from that, you can break all their shields with AoE abilities like Shangling's ult or just, you know, any good pyro ability and just brute force it down. For the second half, you have this Sison Mage who is very annoying. I recommend just speedrunning her because she does get a bunch of like those cryo shields and it's just very, very annoying to deal with if you can't kill her like fast enough. But she isn't that big of a problem if you do have enough DPS to burst her down. Now, if you do want to clump up enemies, you can try to like, you know, use your Venti ult or whatever to deal with all the treasure hoarders at the same time. But in general, you can just get through this floor, this half pretty easily as long as you have the good enough artifacts / a good enough DPS to out damage the timer, pretty much. And I know so far I've been saying a lot that like there isn't much to do for like 9 or 10. It's literally just DPS checks and little bits of strategy you can do to maximize it. And that will change a lot in 11 and 12, I promise you guys. But for 9 and 10, a lot of it is just having good enough characters, being well enough built, and understanding which enemies to focus and some mechanics and stuff like that. Now we're going to talk about Chamber 3 of Floor 10, which is the most challenging one in my opinion, like by far. So there's a Pyro Agent and a Sison Mage. I would highly recommend focusing the Sison Mage because 1, there's the Icy Aura that prisons you, 2, she gets a shield when left alone or when you ignore her, and 3 is just like the most annoying enemy in my opinion. So I'm actually going to rewind here so you guys can see the clip stuff, but as you guys saw, when that prison appeared, as soon as I saw it, I did press Q so I could dodge it, not taking any damage, and that is something that you can do to dodge that prison, or you can use your iframes to dodge it because it does appear, as I mentioned before, once every 12 seconds. If you have Venti ult, you can clump up both of them and it can deal a lot of damage because Sison Mages do take a lot of like fall damage even in Venti ult and are just, if you can clump up both of them together, the mage and the assassin, you can do a lot of damage. But as you can see here, even with only Keqing and a Shangling and a Barber that aren't very well built at all, I can easily clear the DPS check of this chamber. For the second half of 10-3, I've noticed a lot of people do have trouble with this LAWACHURL, so I'm going to try to give as many tips as I can. First of all, his attacks are pretty predictable, so you can dodge them quite easily, and a lot of the time if I'm like out of stamina or if I don't think I can dodge, I will literally just press Q and get the iframes on my ultimate. Like you can see here, I mess up and get stuck in the prison, but I did just press Q when I was in it to avoid taking further damage because it's always something you can do if you mess up, so don't panic. As you can see, his animations are very slow and long, so you can dodge them with ease if you just if you think and do it calmly, so you should be fine. Apart from that though, it is again like a DPS check, and don't forget about the sheer cold. As you can see here, I am taking damage from it, so be sure to visit Mr. Seeley if you do need to be warmed up. Now we're going to talk about Abyss Floor 11. Now for most of you, this is probably why you clicked on the video, so I'm going to be trying to make this section as detailed as possible for every type of player without taking too long. The main sort of disclaimer before we begin, basically how we're going to proceed, is that 11.1 and 3 are much different than 11.2 because it's all about manipulating the AI and defending the monolith. So this chamber is difficult, right? In my opinion, it's usually considered the hardest one, but it is very doable even as a free-to-play player if you do learn the AI properly and basically run an efficient comp with, just decent artifacts. They don't have to be amazing, and we're going to be talking about that in this video. So yeah, we're going to talk about all chambers in order. 1 is usually the easiest. 2 is the monolith protecting, which is AI abuse, learning the bots basically, and then chamber 3 is a DPS check, which we'll talk about. So one of the big annoyances with floor 11 is the leyline disorder. Basically just drains your energy because of like the electro sort of debuff, and it's just very, very annoying to deal with. It does drain your energy, you lose your elemental burst, and it's just not fun. Regarding this leyline disorder, since you are infused with electro, basically it makes Barbara annoying to use because it will electro charge you when you press your E. So basically healer wise, Barbara's annoying but can still work. Jean can cleanse you, and Bennett will cause you to overload, but it's not a big deal from my experience. That being said, overall, you don't need too many elements for this floor. The only thing you need in your second half is something for the rock shield wall miniatures, which is basically like Geo or Overload or a Claymore or something. And for team 1, you do need elements for the Fatuis, so something to break the Geo shield, which again is Claymore, Geo, or Overload, and then Cryo to break the Electro, and then there's also the Hydro Gunner. Now, personally, I try to kill the Hydro Gunner before he gets his shield up, but sometimes you can't do that, right, if your DPS isn't high enough, so you will need Electro for that, ideally. Alright, so let's start with floor 11.1. Now this one, not as much to say as 11.2 or 11.3, not nearly as much, but pretty much just a bunch of slimes, try to group them up and kill them as fast as possible. And just so you guys know, when you do kill all the Hydro Slimes, they do summon the Abyss Mage, so the Abyss Mage only spawns after the Hydro Slimes are dead, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that's something you should know, but in general, just try to group them, do AoE damage, and this chamber usually for most people isn't nearly as hard as like 11.2 or 11.3. The electro debuff can be very annoying, but something that I would recommend is actually trying to build up at least 1 or 2 ults, your most important ones. Just basically trying to get your ultimates, at least 1 or 2 before 11.2 can be nice if you have some spare time, just to farm particles, because 11.2 is usually the hard one. You want to start it with at least 1 or 2 ults if you can. For the second half, there's nothing too special. Once again, try to clump them up, just basically burst them down as fast as you can. It's nothing too strategy focused, like it's just about the damage you deal, a sort of DPS check again. One important tip that I do want to mention concerning grouping mid-trolls, and this is something that I'm going to mention multiple times throughout this video, so I'm sorry if I repeat myself, but for the rock shield ones that charge at you, it is very important to position yourself. Basically, if you stand next to a wall for these rock shield mid-trolls, they'll all charge to the same spot, they'll all charge towards you, making it easier to kill them all because they're grouped, right? So your AoE effects can hit multiple shields at once, can hit all the mid-trolls, and just make your life a lot easier. So it is nice to stand next to a wall against this enemy, and it is something that I will be saying repeatedly every time there's mid-trolls. Basically, just remember, if you stand next to walls, they can be easier to fight. But yeah, basically if you don't do that and you do the mistake that I do in this clip, you can see how they're all sort of spread out here. Like I can only attack 2 of them at most here. It's just a lot less efficient. That being said though, not much else to say about this this Abyss floor. Just remember how to destroy mid-trolls shields, being either Geo, Claymore, or Overload if possible. Or you could freeze them and ignore it like I'm doing in this freeze comp. Okay, for 11.2, I'm going to be basically, this is probably going to be the longest part of the video, so I'm going to try to split it into sections and talk about different things. So I do want to talk about how the AI works, who to prioritize, who to kill first, who to leave alive, because a lot of these enemies you don't actually want to be killing. Some target you, some target the monolith, so I do want to be talking about every single enemy. I also want to give specific team comps, some that are free to play friendly, and some, like, I will be talking about if you have Venti as well. So I'm going to try to really go over everything because I do want to help free to play players, low budget players, and also like pay to win, whales, whatever, that do have Venti but that can't beat 11, because not everyone that has good characters obviously can just steamroll 11. So I do want to talk about everything so you guys can understand and get your 3 stars here, because I believe that everyone can. First of all, let me say that the main character Lumine or Aether is actually really good here, and you can run them on Anemo or Geo. Both have a good strategy, and I'll talk about both, but I personally prefer Anemo MC, especially in 11, and I'll talk about why when we get there. But basically I'm going to be talking about the MC strat. I'll talk about what to do with other Anemo characters like Sucrose, or, you know, if you have Venti. I'll also talk about how good Ganyu is, and how like freeze comps can also work here, so I'll try to cover all that, and also we'll talk about some of the Geo constructs that can block the monolith, like Jade Screen. Before we get into it, I just want to say that the MC strat I think is a genius idea, but it wasn't mine. It was actually brought to me by Syleza, who's a guide in the Keqing main Discord, and they wrote an entire Abyss 9 to 12 guide, and I know that I talk fast, and so sometimes having a written guide can be helpful, so definitely check it out if you need it. It's very informative. And the link's obviously in the description. Something important to note is that your grouper, your Venti, your Sucrose, whatever Anemo character you're using to clump up enemies should be in your second half, because of, especially for Abyss 2, it's just really useful, especially with dealing with like the Syson Mage, so that the bats don't destroy the monolith and all that. Alright, I hope that wasn't too confusing, but without further ado, let's talk about 11.2. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is how the enemies work in 11.2. So you will notice a lot of enemies. Basically, there are 2 rock shield hilichurls that attack the monolith, 2 of like the torch dudes that attack you, and then 2 archers, 1 on you, 1 on the monolith. So basically the way the archers work is that every time one dies, another will respawn until there are no more of them. And the main thing you should know is that the first Electro Archer will target you and not the monolith. So a good strategy is to rush down the first Pyro Archer, because the other Archer will be targeting you, and then the 2 Torch dudes will also be targeting you, and then right after that, everything except the 2 guys in the middle, the 2 Stone Hilichurls, will be on you. So then what you can do is you can use one of the strategies that I'm going to talk about, and from there, everything's on you except the middle guys, so those are the ones you're going to focus. The first method I want to cover revolves around the main character, who is really strong in this. We're going to be talking about Anemo MC first, but basically, the Anemo MC, what she can do is by pressing E, she will aggro the mobs that are initially aggroed to the monolith. So as you guys will see in this clip in about 2 seconds, I'm going to swap to my main character. I press E here, and that the guy with the shield that was initially on the monolith is now aggroed on me. So I'm actually going to show you guys a better clip where I'm going to be pausing. So as you guys can see here, I press E on these 2 hilichurls, and then immediately, see how they're targeting the monolith? Immediately after this is over, they are both on me now, and for the rest of the, well, you know, until I kill them basically, they are targeted on me now, so it is much safer for the monolith. Keep in mind, Geo constructs can also work, like Ningguang's wall, but that does scale on HP, so you do need some investment in her, ideally levels or a plus 20 flower. As you can see here, the wall does block projectiles, and so does Geo MC. Her little Geo MC's E can block the shots, and you can use her ultimate to like sort of push away the enemies that are aggroed on the monolith. But I personally prefer running Anemo MC because I find it simpler and more effective. But both work and are both viable strategies. Another important thing to note is that if you have Ganyu, not only is she OP in floor, well, OP in general, but in 11 especially because of the crowd damage bonus, but her E also taunts enemies. So something you guys should know is that Ganyu's E basically does taunt those 2 rock shield hilichurls. So instead of targeting the monolith, they do look at that at Ganyu's E, and it will switch their aggro for a brief moment until it explodes. Also, freeze comps can be effective, but I do tend to use that more in the second half of 11.2, so we'll be talking about those later. But you can use a freeze comp for 11. It definitely works, especially because of the crowd damage bonus, which is very nice. Alright guys, now we're going to be doing a full 11.2 run, well at least the first half, and I'll be talking over it and basically telling you guys what you should do. And this is going to be with the Anemo MC strat, running her on the first half, and obviously if you have Venti or whatever, you can put them on the second half. But I am running Anemo MC first half here. Before I show you the complete run, actually, I want to record a bonus clip, which I noticed while editing. Basically, my main character didn't have her ultimate, her elemental burst in the clip, but if you can farm it in 11.1, now the ley line is annoying, so it's hard to get it, but if you can get it, it is very useful, and the strategy, the first thing you do does change a bit. You should actually ult on her at the very start, and I'll show you guys what I mean. So basically, if you press your Q over here, you can push these dudes away from the monolith and get that archer, and then you can press E on them so that they aggro you instead of the monolith, and you can kill the pyro archer after that. But anyways, back to the clips. As you guys saw, the first thing I did was kill this pyro archer because he is on the monolith while the other archer is on me. So I kill him, and then I swap to my Anemo MC because this is the strategy we're using. I hold E to taunt the two dudes in the middle away from the monolith, and now everything is on me. Okay, which means the monolith shouldn't be taking damage here, so I just can sort of take my time and kill these enemies, and make sure that nothing, like none of the archers do accidentally shoot the monolith. Once the rock hilichurls are dead, there's new ones that spawn. 2 more spawn that will attack the monolith, and then if you're running an Emo MC, you would want to taunt those 2, obviously. So that is what I do. I actually press E on Ganyu because I have her, but an Emo MC's E would have worked as well. Now, something to keep in mind here is as you kill the 2 rock hilichurls, a mid-troll with an axe will spawn, and he usually targets the monolith. Now, something to know is that if you stand on him when he spawns, if you stand in his spawn location, which is between the 2 archers, I'm actually going to pause the clip here. As you guys can see, he spawned right here, which is between the 2 archers. If you stand next to him when he spawns, he will actually aggro you and not the monolith. So that can save some HP of the monolith, but if not, it's not a big deal. He will rush to it, and then you can just basically just attack him and burst him down. But yeah, so if you just stand there, when you kill the 2 rock hilichurls, he will be on you initially. As you guys can see here, he does start attacking me, and the monolith took no damage from him. Now, I did accidentally spawn the shield guy a bit too early, so I did lose some HP on my monolith, but it isn't a big deal. Just keep in mind that the axe hilichurl spawns when you kill the two rock shield dudes, and the shield mid-churl does spawn when you kill the 2 torch hilichurls that are on you. So right here, what you want to do is you want to kill one type of archer, because the archers will start focusing the monolith. So leave the red one alive and focus the purple, or vice versa. Leave the electro alive and focus the pyro. Just focus one type. And then when that's and you can leave the shield mid-churl alive because he's targeting you and he's kind of dumb. So yeah, once you finish killing one type of archer, you just do that for the other type of archer, and that's it. You shouldn't really be taking any monolith damage here unless you mess up, which I do sometimes. As you see here, I think the monolith takes damage because I miss my arrow. It happens. So just to summarize it, you focus the pyro archer at the very start. Then you kill the dudes in the middle, or you get them off the monolith using an Emo MC or whatever strategy you choose. Then after that, for the axe mid-churl, when he spawns after you kill the 4 shield hilichurls, the middle churl will spawn in the middle. If you stand next to him, he will aggro you. If not, that's okay. You can let him run to the monolith if you want, but just try to burst him down. Then after that, just focus one type of archer. If what I said was too fast, or you guys are confused, or it wasn't clear, there will be a link in the description with a text guide. We're actually going to be especially talking about an Emo MC strategy, but something to keep in mind is that it works really, really well on the first half of 11.2. But if you only have one Emo character, usually you want that character in the second half. So like your Venti would be second half, or your Sucrose, or whoever your grouper / clumper is, like whoever will clump a bunch of enemies up together, should be in the second half. So if you only have one and it's only MC, you might want to put it on the second half and find another strategy for the first half. But the MC strategy on the first half does work phenomenally if you can pull it off. All right, now let's finally talk about the second half of Chamber 2. So for this one, I would recommend basically interrupting the attacks of the treasure hoarders. Make sure they don't attack the monolith. So, keep interrupting them. And running a freeze comp here can actually be very efficient, which is what I'm running, a 4-star freeze comp. It can work, but if your DPS isn't high enough, something you should know is that while the treasure hoarders are going to try to hit the monolith, the Sison Mage does target you, but the bats, they do chip away, they do damage the monolith constantly, so you do want to rush her down, the Sison Mage, as fast as possible, because there's not much you can do about the bats attacking the monolith. However, running an Emo character here, a grouper, is very, very nice, which is why characters like Sucrose or Venti should not only be in your second half, but should be like prioritized over anything in your second half if you do have them, especially Venti, definitely the best character here. But as you guys can see, I am running a freeze comp in the current clip with no Emo characters, or Animo characters. I'm sorry if I've been mispronouncing it, but anyways, no Emo characters, and I get all 3 stars. With just the Emo MC strategy first half and cryo characters on the second half. So basically, if you can clump up enemies, do it. But the main tips I can give you guys is focus the treasure hoarders that are trying to hit the monolith. Interrupt their attacks for the first wave, and then focus the Sison Mage. So make sure the treasure hoarders aren't hitting the monolith, then burst down the Sison Mage. Then after that, focus the treasure hoarders because the Fatui agent is on you. So you focus the 2 sort of side treasure hoarders because the guy with the shovel is an idiot and he doesn't do any damage. So you do want to focus the 2 other treasure hoarders, and just make sure the Fatui agent doesn't like dash through the monolith while trying to get to you, because he is targeted on you. Once those 2 treasure hoarders are dead, the other 2 enemies don't really attack the monolith. Obviously the pyro agent is on you, and the guy with the shovel is literally useless. And if you guys don't believe me, the guy with the shovel is actually useless. He like cannot damage the monolith. It's actually really funny to watch him go. I feel kind of bad for the guy, but you don't have to worry about him at all. I know I'm talking fast, but there's a lot to cover, and I don't want to make you guys watch a 6-hour video, but I am also trying to cover literally everything that there is to say. Now, if you do have Venti or a grouper for 11-2, basically you want to be using their ultimate to clump up the enemies. Like if you have Venti here, it makes the second half a lot easier. So if you did use like a Nemo MC strat for the first half and use Venti on the second half, you'll have no problems. Now this guide isn't a Venti focused guide, but I do want to mention him and talk about how to use him because, as I said, some people do have Venti, and if you do use them, don't feel bad about them. Basically just spam your ultimate and clump up the enemies. For 11-2, as you can see here, all the treasure hoarders got clumped up, and there's only the pyro agent left at the end, and he doesn't target the monolith, so it was very, very easy. Alright, so now we're going to talk about 11-3. Now this is a hard abyss floor, one of the harder ones. It's very different to 11-2 because this is a DPS check. It's basically rush down the Fatuis as fast as you can, and while there isn't too many tips I can give you, there are a few that can be very helpful. First of all, let me just say in the background right now is 4-star comps of only 4-star characters, so you know, pretty free-to-play friendly. I know not everyone will have these characters, but I am using, well actually this footage is from my friend who is using 4-star comps, just to show you guys that it is definitely doable without Venti, without 5 stars, as long as you have good comps. So at the very beginning, I would recommend rushing down this Electro Fatui because one, the Anemo Boxer will rush to you, so you can fight both of them when he arrives, and also this guy gets a shield, which can be annoying, and his aura does summon this like lightning prison, but it is easy to dodge and stuff. After the first wave of Fatuis, there are 3 that spawns. I would recommend rushing down the Hydro Gunner as fast as possible. If you can kill him before he gets his shield and like stagger him, because basically there's an animation before he gets his shield. If you can do that, that is ideal. If you can freeze him, that is also ideal. But if not, just you can break the shield with Electro, but it takes very, very long. So I would recommend just bursting him down as fast as you can. After that, obviously prioritize the Geochanter and then the Electro dude, and you should be fine. It's just a DPS check, so you do need pretty decent artifacts, but you do not need like amazing characters. As I'm saying, the comp I'm showing on screen is a good comp, but it is all 4 stars. For the second half, there's only one real tip, and that's to stay as close to the mobs as possible. First of all, staying next to the Sison mages makes you not accidentally target the bats as often, which can be very, very annoying. And staying next to the pyro agents that spawn after can let you basically avoid the blades that spin around them, which can also be very annoying. Now, this again is just a DPS check, so those are like the only tips I can give you because you basically just have to rush these enemies down. Now, I will say, like, the Sison Mage obviously has Electro resistance, Pyro Mage obviously has Pyro resistance, so I wouldn't recommend running like a Pyro DPS against the Fatui Pyro Mage. I would put what I personally would put my Diluc on like the first half if you are using that character. But as you guys can see on screen, once again, thanks to my friend Zeja77, it is all 4-star characters doing a full 3-star clear of this second half. So it is definitely possible with 4-star characters. You just need to build your comp effectively. But yeah, while my 11-2 was pretty, my 11-2 guide was pretty detailed, 11-3 is pretty much just Oonga Boonga, do as much damage as you can. But yeah, if you are struggling with this, I would recommend just upgrading your artifacts and maybe like your party comps, but it's especially just, as I keep saying, just DPS. Also, the last thing I want to say is that both mobs, both of the Fatuis rather, are prone to taking fall damage, so you can use like Overload. It is usually hard to set up except with like Jean, but I will be talking about Jean in particular in the Abyss 12 section, so stay tuned for that. Alright, now we're going to talk about floor 12. So for this one, the only element you need actually is just something to counter the Rock Shield Metatrolls on each side. So what that means is either a Geo character, a Claymore, or you can spam Overload. Or you could also just run like freeze comps and ignore the shields, but you definitely need something to deal with these Metatrolls because they are very annoying to kill. Also keep in mind that there are Pyro agents and Electro mages, so like if your main DPS is Pyro like Diluc, you might not want to put him on the second half. Same thing within Electro DPS, obviously. If you have a grouper like Venti, it is very ideal to run them on the first half of floor 12 because of the large amount of mobs that are in this half. Also, I just want to emphasize that this Geo damage buff is huge. It makes characters like Ningguang, Albedo, and Zhongli absolutely amazing here, and Geo MC is definitely usable as well. For the first half of 12-1, obviously if you have a character like Sucrose, Venti, and Nemo MC that you can use to clump up all the enemies, that is ideal. Obviously Venti's the best, but you don't need them. As you guys can see in my clear in the background, I only have 2 characters. Neither of them are groupers, but they are both getting buffed by the Geo bonus, obviously. But you don't need, like, Geo DPSs are nice, and Geo characters are nice in this floor, but you don't need them. For the second half, there's an Eye in the Storm and a Ruin Guard. For the Ruin Guard, you can paralyze them by shooting the weak point, obviously. And for the Eye of the Storm, literally just brute force them, and if you have an archer, it helps. Also, something I wanted to add, you can paralyze the Eye of the Storm during certain attacks. Like this one, as you're going to see in 2 seconds, when he puts that red circle on the ground. This attack, you can, if you attack him with an archer or, you know, anyone, even Barbara, or like, I'm pretty sure Razor Hold E works, you can stun him make him drop down. Also, during this like Windstorm attack, you can shoot him to stun him, and I'm pretty sure you can plunge attack as well if you don't have a bow character with like the currency makes, but I haven't tested that. Overall, it's just an Eye of the Storm and a Ruin Guard. You can, as I said, shoot the weak point of the Ruin Guard, or you could just brute force him. It's up to you, but nothing special with this first chamber. For 12-2, it's just a ton of treasure hoarders, like so many of them, that honestly, if you have a Nemo character that clumps up enemies, this is where they shine the most in like all of Abyss. Like Venti Q here is so good because you get to kill every treasure hoarder at once. But if you don't have it, it's okay. As you guys can see, I'm only using Ning and Zhongli as well, like in the background, and I'm doing fine. But having a grouper here is ideal. If you do want to have enough energy for your elemental burst going into 12-3, you can try to charge your ultimates on the last 2 treasure hoarders when you notice that there's like 1 or 2 left. For the second half, it's literally just Fatui Pyro agents, which is why I don't recommend having a Pyro DPS on the second half. And for these, literally just brute force them down, stay next to them if you don't want to get hit by the blades, and you can abuse fall damage against them. It's actually really effective. And I am not exaggerating, Jean is one of the most broken characters for this Abyss because of how easily she can abuse fall damage. Look at this. Throwing the Fatuis in the air, and they drop down, and that was 76k damage on one of them. That is insane. So you can definitely abuse fall damage. I don't have Jean, so this is once again footage from Zajef77, my friend. But yeah, if you do have her, or if you can abuse fall damage in other ways as well, you can definitely do that. Alright, now let's talk about floor 12-3. It's 12-3 and 11-3 that are the 2 hard DPS checks. And what I want to show you guys is basically a spot to group up the Minotaurs. Now, usually when you fight these guys, you don't want to be next to a wall so they can clump up. And in 12-3, that does work. However, there is a spot, I'm going to rewind here. There's a spot where if you stand right here, which is basically dashing twice from the start, where if you stand there, the Minotaurs will naturally group up. As you guys see, I do it here. Both of them dash to the same spot, and then I ult them with my Diluc to hit both of them. Now for the rest of the background footage, I'm not going to be using my Venti comp, just so people don't get upset at the Venti. But basically what you guys want to know for this floor is, first of all, you want to rush down these Minotaurs and stay next to a wall so they don't separate. I did mess up in this clip, they did separate, but normally you want to hug the wall as close as possible so that they both dash into you. Apart from that, you just gotta burst these guys down and kill them as fast as possible. Once you've defeated the 2 Minotaurs, there's a Sison Mage and 2 Treasure Hoarders. If you have a Nemo character, a grouper like Venti, Sucrose, Nemo MC, you can try to group them up, to group the Treasure Hoarders with the Sison Mage, but it's very annoying. With Venti, I find it really easy. You can go behind the Sison Mage and ult the middle, but with the other Nemo characters, it's doable, but I just find it really annoying. So definitely try to do it. But it's not the most fun thing ever. So I would recommend rushing down the Sison Mage as fast as you can. Stay next to her so that you don't auto-target a bunch of random flies. And be careful for the lightning aura that spawns the triangular cage. But it is easy to dodge because you can just dash through it with your iframes. Once again, you can abuse fall damage here with someone like Jean or, you know, like Overload and stuff. There's specific ways to do it with like sword charge attacks and all that. I haven't experimented with it too much, but I do know that it is a viable strategy, and I want to mention it so that you guys can do it if you need to. Apart from that, it's just a DPS check, so a lot of it is about artifacts and team comps, and if you have Geo characters, they are especially good in floor 12 because of the buff. For the second half, there's also 2 Minotaurs, but this time they spawn a bit on different areas, so you do want to run to a wall on like either north or south to group them up because one spawns left, one spawns right. Once you've defeated both Minotaurs, the last enemy, the Pyro agent, will spawn in like the north middle area. You can run to him and just, you know, burst them down. Obviously, everything that applies to a Pyro Mage applies here. Stay close to him to not get hit by the blades. You can abuse fall damage, all that stuff. But apart from that, there's not much more I can tell you guys about floor 12-3. So that about sums it up, guys. I really hope this video wasn't too long, and I really hope it was informative. I tried to go over every single floor in as much detail as I can, and trust me, I cut out a lot. This video was way too long, and it took way too long to make. So if you enjoyed it, obviously like or whatever, but I really hope it helped you guys, and I hope you guys can get every star in Abyss, or at least the most stars possible for you. And I tried to do as much detail as possible because a lot of this Abyss is game knowledge, especially like 11-2, where I believe most players can get it if they take the time to learn it and use a decent team comp. So I just really wanted to help people because I know a lot of people have been stuck on 11. I don't know if this video is just too long to be watchable. I don't know if anyone's even going to make it to the outro. But anyways, I hope the video was well done. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything I want to add, it'll be in a pinned comment. I stream most nights on Twitch. Come say hi. I appreciate you guys. That's it for me. Subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's okay too. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you. So as you guys can see, as I'm about to get hit, I can just use my dash, can run through it.